representative of Denmark for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of United States.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, U.S. opposition to this resolution will come as no surprise. It fails to condemn Hamas or recognize Israel's right to defend itself, and it wrongly legitimizes the false narratives benefiting Hamas, which have sadly found currency in this Council. Council members ignored when the United States made clear that this resolution was unacceptable. The Council instead adopted for performative action designed to draw a veto that extends Hamas terrorists and those who fund them and support them and gives them a lifeline. Let's recall that Hamas started this brutal conflict on October 7th, 2023, when it perpetrated the worst massacre and kidnapping of Jews since the Holocaust. To the approval of its supporters who took to the streets on October 8th to praise what Hamas had done, Hamas promises to repeat October 7th. Despite everything, Hamas has no regrets. The lives of Gaza's civilians in harm's way are mere tools in the project to destroy Israel. Hamas continues to hold 48 hostages. Those who remain alive are captive in a living hell. It has done so for 713 days. We have seen the chilling videos and images of how Hamas has starved the hostages. In this Council, we have heard heart-rending testimony from freed hostages, how Hamas brutalized and sexually assaulted them during their captivity. Hamas is responsible for starting and continuing this war. Israel has accepted proposed terms that would end the war, but Hamas continues to reject them. This war could end today if Hamas freed the hostages and laid down its arms. This resolution has other serious defects beyond just failing to condemn Hamas. First, the United States has stressed since this conflict began that Israel has the right to defend itself. This resolution seeks an immediate, unconditional, and permanent ceasefire that would leave Hamas in a position to carry out future October 7th attacks, as it has threatened to do so many times. This resolution draws a dangerous false equivalence between Israel and Hamas. There can be no equating the two, full stop. The hostages in this resolution are a mere afterthought. The United States will never accept this. President Trump will never accept this. He has made clear all 48 hostages must be released now. This resolution also refuses to acknowledge and seeks to return to a failed system that has allowed Hamas to enrich and strengthen itself at the expense of civilians in need. This resolution wrongly references the IPC report with its flawed methodology, changed standards, and clear bias. Gaza has humanitarian needs because of Hamas, and because the international community turned a blind eye to the true use of the billions in aid that it provided. Israel takes clear risks by working every single day with the United States and regional partners to deliver aid to civilians, as we witnessed today. As Ambassador Huckabee said, initial reports show a terrorist arrived at Albany Crossing, driving an aid truck intended for Gaza, and murdered 2 Israeli soldiers. This heinous act betrays the trust in humanitarian efforts. We offer our condolences to the bereaved IDF families. This resolution fails to recognize the reality on the ground that there has been a meaningful increase in the flow of humanitarian aid. However, the UN's own data shows that approximately 85% of UN aid sent to Gaza since May 19th has been intercepted. We must ensure that this aid reaches the civilians who need it, rather than sustaining the Hamas terrorists. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, the GHF, supports that goal, delivering over 167 million meals to date to those in need, rather than to Hamas. GHF works well, and it is untainted by the extreme failure of other organizations at the UN. The UN and the Council members should support the GHF and other mechanisms, including airdrops by Jordan, the UAE, and international partners facilitating deliveries of food and other supplies into Gaza. These mechanisms have delivered humanitarian assistance and other goods to those in need and denied Hamas the supply on which they have come to rely. So, The United States rejects this unacceptable resolution. It is beyond time that Hamas release every single hostage now and surrender immediately. The United States will continue to work with its partners to bring an end to this horrific conflict for the sake of the people of Gaza, who deserve a future free from Hamas, and the whole Middle East, which is ready to move into a new chapter of peace and prosperity. For these reasons, the United States of America will vote against the draft resolution and urges delegations to join us in voting against it.
I thank the representative of the United States for the statement. I shall put the draft.
Mr. President, I congratulate the Republic of Korea for its assumption of the Security Council presidency, assured of your wise leadership of these deliberations and the work of this Council. From the outset, I wish to express our thanks to Algeria, to Denmark, Guyana, Pakistan, Panama, Republic of Korea, Sierra Leone, Slovenia, and Somalia, the 10 of you, the E10, and Greece, sorry. We thank you for your leadership and relentless efforts for many long months now to push for a permanent and unconditional ceasefire that would end the massacres being perpetrated by Israel against the Palestinian people, that would release hostages and prisoners, that would end the occupation-imposed famine and unbearable human suffering, and that would stop the forcible displacement of our people and the annexation of Palestinian land. We listened very closely to your passionate statements and your outstanding efforts in order to try to bring this nightmare and this genocide against the Palestinian people to an end. The alternative to all of this, which is demanded by international law and by our collective humanity, is unfolding before our eyes. I can understand the anger and frustration and the huge disappointment of the Palestinian people who might be watching this session of the Security Council, hoping that there is some help is in the pipeline and this nightmare to be brought to an end. I can imagine their anger and frustration that it did not happen, and these atrocities are continuing to be imposed on them. And if any one of you, and I'm sure you do, if you see these images of the total destruction of the city of Gaza, with a flood of tens of thousands of humans navigating through that destruction, you will have no heart if you do not be moved by this amount of pain and anguish that the Palestinian people are going through it. Babies dying of starvation, snipers shooting children in the head, civilians killed en masse, families displaced again and again from ruins to ruins and from death to death. UN personnel and doctors and humanitarians and journalists targeted. Devastation and destruction rained down, pulverizing an entire society. And Israeli officials openly mocking all of this and praising the real state value of Gaza. This draft resolution represents the bare minimum that humanity, legality, and morality dictate. It is deeply regrettable and painful that it has been blocked, preventing the Security Council from playing its rightful role in the face of these atrocities and to protect civilians in the face of genocide. It is regrettable that you, the custodians of the maintenance of International Peace and Security Council, were unable to act in that direction, and the minimum is to adopt the resolution that was not adopted. Mr. President, I want to thank all those that supported this draft resolution. In addition to the 10, the 4 others that made it receive 14 votes, almost 15, but 15 minus 1. Many council members were willing to go much further than the language in the text, including by rightfully resorting to Chapter 7 of the UN Charter. Millions of people in the streets are demanding from you to use Chapter 7 in order to impose your will through whatever tools available to you to force Israel to stop this genocide against the Palestinian people. But the draft was a genuine effort for the Council to speak with one voice. Unfortunately, the Council remains silent at a great cost for its credibility and authority. This demonstrates that when it comes to atrocities, crimes, the use of the veto should simply not be allowed. The United States has been, together with Egypt and Qatar, trying to reach a ceasefire agreement. We supported repeatedly the mediation efforts towards a ceasefire agreement and called repeatedly on Hamas to cooperate with them, even when Israel was sparing no effort to prevent reaching such an agreement. What more proof is needed that Israel does not want a ceasefire agreement that would save Palestinian and Israeli lives? After the Israeli strike on the territory of Qatar, a key mediator, to target those that the mediator was convening to reach such a ceasefire agreement and to end this nightmare. We condemn on the strongest terms this attack against the sisterly country of Qatar. Whether in Gaza or in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem or in the region, Israel has chosen time and time again the path of violence. In response to the global demands for a ceasefire and the global demands for an end to its illegal occupation, it chooses instead to escalate its violence, committing crime upon crime with no end in sight, with full impunity. And children, women, and men, entire families, are paying with their lives for this appalling impunity and inhumanity. Just 2 days ago, the Human Rights Council's Independent Commission of Inquiry joined the many concluding on the basis of the undeniable evidence that this is a genocide, reaffirming the obligation in all states, without exception, to act now to prevent and punish this crime that shames the world, that shames all of us. Mr. President, violence is an impasse. Ceasefire saves lives, Palestinians and Israelis, and hostages and prisoners. There is no justification for killing and harming civilians, whether Palestinians or Israelis. Calling for such violence to end can suffer no conditions, no delays, no excuses. One should not see only partially the suffering of a group of people and completely ignore to acknowledge the mountains of suffering of the Palestinian people. It is the right thing to do It is the only thing to do. There is no right for Israel to massacre Palestinians. There is no right for Israel to commit genocide. There is no right for Israel to commit ethnic cleansing. There is no right for Israel to starve a people. There is no right for Israel to displace and dispossess a nation. Israel's impunity is fueling its folly. Shielding it is allowing it to persist on a horrific path that will never lead to peace or security or integration. No matter how many tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of soldiers, they cannot erase from the face of earth a nation, the Palestinian nation, nor will they be able to succeed in eradicating tens of thousands, millions of Palestinians. We are here to stay, and there is no power on earth that will negate our existence. So for those who are living in denial and drunk with their ecstasy and victories, wake up. The only road is the road to peace. The only road is the road of the two-state solution, to live next to each other and peace and security. We are committed to that. The whole world is committed to that. There is only one party, led with a group of fanatic leaders who are refusing to accept that, and they are trying, in a futile exercise, to eradicate the existence of the Palestinian people and their national rights, including their right to self-determination, statehood, and the right of the refugees. Israel must be stopped for the sake of our people and for the sake of the Israeli people and for the sake of our region and for the sake of our international community and the international system created to save humanity. A ceasefire must take place. Hostages and prisoners must be released. Aid must flood Gaza, and the UN and humanitarians must be allowed to do their work, save lives. 2 million people must be saved from this hell. The veto prevented this Council from taking action at a time when it is most needed for the maintenance of international peace and security. But that is not the end, and it will not be the end, as many of you said. All states must take their responsibility and take decisive measures that will deter Israel, the occupying power, from pursuing its criminal schemes against our people. They have the tools. All of you have the tools in your national capacity and collectively. You have the tools, and these tools must be used. Use them, including through an international protection force and immediate tangible accountability measures. We recognize and thank all those who have been taking bold decisions to end the horrors, to end this illegal occupation. The General Assembly demanded a year ago an end of the Israeli occupation by September 2025. Following the ICJ advisory opinion deeming this occupation illegal, and to ensure the rights and freedom of the Palestinian people and the independence of the State of Palestine, and to advance real justice and lasting peace. We urge the implementation of those decisions. We appeal to all to uphold their obligations with action to ensure accountability, to end Israelis' impunity, to protect the Palestinian people, to salvage the two-state solution, to salvage the prospects for a just peace, and that Israel is trying to destroy every single day. Mr. President, there is a future with no violence, no hatred, no killing, where the forces of peace finally prevail, and we are getting stronger, the forces of peace. Not only the 14 of you in this chamber, but almost the entire membership of the General Assembly. And it is growing with hundreds of millions who are demonstrating in the streets asking for peace and asking for a ceasefire. But accessing that future starts by stopping this madness. In the coming days, leaders gathering here in New York on this 80th anniversary of the United Nations must take individually and collectively the decisions that will save Gaza, save Palestine, save peace, save the Middle East, and save our international law-based order. Palestine will be present, whether physically or through other measures. Tomorrow, in the General Assembly, we expect an overwhelming voting on the resolution that demands that Palestine to be present. We prefer that our leaders to be present physically, just to come peacefully, to express the position of the Palestinian people like all of your leaders do. But whether we are physically there, meaning our leaders, or that whether they will participate in other methods, Palestine will be there. It will be the biggest elephant in New York City. This General Assembly will be the General Assembly of the question of Palestine. Action can no longer be delayed. There is far too much at stake. Gaza is the ultimate test, and two Palestinian people for 2 years now have paid the price of our failure to stop the killing machine launched against them. We cannot fail them any longer. We have to act. We have to act now, and we are confident that the army of those who will be joining the action march will get bigger and bigger. Palestine will not be the exception to the rule. As humanity succeeded in putting an end to apartheid, humanity will succeed in putting an end to this illegal occupation, and Palestine will be free, and the two-state solution will be a reality. Thank you.
I thank the permanent observer with the Observer State of Palestine for the statement.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have the honor to deliver this statement on behalf of the 10 elected members of the Security Council, namely Algeria, Greece, Guyana, Pakistan, Panama, the Republic of Korea, Sierra Leone, Slovenia, Somalia, and my own country, Denmark. Mr. President, as elected members, we represent every region of the world. Importantly, we represent the will and the expectations of the members of the General Assembly by whom we were elected. In electing us, they entrusted us with the solemn responsibility to maintain international peace and security. It is in this spirit and with this grave responsibility in mind that we, collectively and resolutely, present today's resolution. Mr. President, famine has been confirmed in Gaza. Not projected, not declared, confirmed. Desperate mothers are forced to boil leaves to feed their children. Fathers search the rubble for sustenance. People are killed as they try to get food to survive. A generation risks being lost not only to war, but to hunger and despair. Meanwhile, Israel has expanded its military operation in Gaza City, further deepening the suffering of civilians as a result. It is this catastrophic situation, this humanitarian and human failure, that has compelled us to act today. Mr. President, today we will take action on an important resolution. It focuses on 3 urgent and immediate demands, demands that many member states have made time and time again. No more and no less. First, an immediate, unconditional and permanent ceasefire in Gaza respected by all parties. Second, the immediate, dignified, and unconditional release of all hostages held by Hamas and other groups. And third, that the government of Israel immediately and unconditionally lifts all restrictions on the entry of humanitarian aid into Gaza and ensures its safe and unhindered distribution to the population in need of such assistance in line with international humanitarian law. Mr. President, this is the product of weeks of consultations. The sole intent of this resolution is to ease suffering and contribute to the end of this abhorrent war. So, colleagues, let this resolution send a clear message. A message that the Security Council is not turning its back on starving civilians, on the hostages, and the demand for a ceasefire. Let it say that we support humanitarian workers and health personnel struggling against impossible odds. That when a war is live-streamed around the world, daily and in graphic details, we have the decency to act. That international law matters. That humanitarian principles matter. That the principles of humanity enshrined in the UN Charter guide us. Mr. President, we, the 10 elected members of the Security Council, call on all Council members to vote in favor of this resolution and to uphold this Council's responsibility for the maintenance of international peace and security. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Denmark for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of United States.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues,
The statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Pakistan.
Mr. President, on the eve of the 80th General Assembly session and the high-level week, this 10,000th meeting, what a dark moment in this chamber. Pakistan voted in favor of the draft resolution alongside 13 members of the Council. We commend Denmark for its efforts in coordinating this joint E10 initiative. We align ourselves with the remarks of the permanent representative of Denmark. President, Pakistan profoundly regrets that this Council was unable to adopt a draft resolution tabled by the 10 elected members, a resolution solely aimed at addressing the unfolding humanitarian crisis in Gaza. This was not a routine procedural matter. It was an opportunity to act in the face of unprecedented brutality and devastation and mass displacement in Gaza as the Israeli ground invasion intensifies. But let us be clear, it is not for lack of will or initiative. A clear majority of this Council has consistently demanded urgent action to stop the carnage in Gaza. And we have fulfilled our part of that responsibility. What prevented the Council from acting was the exercise of the veto. That carries a heavy responsibility. And that is where the apology must lie. In moments of such grave human suffering, preventing the Council from fulfilling its mandate risks being seen as enabling the continuation of that suffering. Those who have chosen this course must review their position. The people of Gaza are trapped between relentless bombardment and a suffocating blockade. Children are starving. Hospitals have collapsed. Families have no water, no medicine, no shelter. The occupation army has subjected Gaza City to its most punishing attacks in 2 years of war. sending thousands of residents fleeing under bombs and bullets amid fear that they might never return. This is not a tragedy unfolding in silence. It is happening before the eyes of the world, in plain sight, live on our screens, and the front pages of our newspapers. In that grim setting, today's failure sends a dangerous message that the lives of 2 million besieged Palestinians are deemed expendable and can be subordinated to political considerations. Every hour of obstruction deepens the wound and aggravates the suffering of the people of Gaza. Each failure compounds the cost also for the credibility of this Council. The human toll is staggering. More than 64,000 Palestinians have been killed. Famine has been officially declared in Gaza, with more than 400 deaths already caused by starvation. Infrastructure lies in ruins. Hospitals, schools, water and energy systems have been deliberately targeted and devastated. Aid workers, journalists, no one has been spared, and generations have been wiped out. Families endure unimaginable suffering, and yes, the safety of hostages is being compromised. Their cries may also be drowning out by the roars of the bombs, together with the hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. And while preventing any moves by this Council, there have been assurances of action on ground, and those assurances have rung hollow, as the situation has only worsened, as we have seen. President, let me repeat, the majority of this Council has acted responsibly. We have fulfilled our duty under the Charter. The shortcomings lie not with the Council as a whole, but with the constraints imposed on it. Several grim realities underscore the urgency of action. First, famine. Already declared in Gaza City, famine threatens to spread across the Strip. Military escalation. Ignoring the calls for a ceasefire and having repeatedly undermined and sabotaged the negotiations, the Israeli onslaught on Gaza City is now claiming dozens of lives daily and could uproot 1 million people. And West Bank annexation plans. The expansion of illegal settlements in the West Bank, including the latest E1 plan, exposes the entrenched nature of the occupation and its true intentions, a death knell to the two-state solution. What a stark manifestation of settler colonialism in the 21st century. And we cannot remain oblivious of the fact that all of this is happening with an ongoing case in the ICJ and the unmistakably grave findings of the UN Commission of Inquiry regarding the acts of genocide in Gaza. Mr. President, Pakistan reaffirms its unwavering support for the Palestinian people in their just struggle for self-determination, dignity, and justice. We reiterate the call for an immediate, unconditional, and permanent ceasefire and an end to all military operations, an immediate, unconditional end to starvation and the inhuman blockade, with full unimpeded access through multiple entry and distribution points for humanitarian aid at scale throughout the Gaza Strip, and a just, lasting, and peaceful settlement of the Palestinian question, with the establishment of a sovereign, contiguous Palestinian state on pre-1967 borders, with Al-Quds al-Sharif as its capital, in accordance with the relevant UN resolutions and international legitimacy. Pakistan stands resolutely with the majority of this Council, and indeed with the majority of the UN membership, reflecting the expectations of the wider international community. We stand on the side of humanity and with justice and with international law. The world is watching. The cries of children should pierce our hearts. The anguish of mothers should shake our conscience. Palestine looks to this Council, and we cannot turn away. Regardless of circumstances, we will not remain idle. We will continue to act, to speak, and to uphold our responsibilities. This is our duty. To the brave and resilient people of Palestine, waging a just struggle against occupation for their inalienable right to self-determination and freedom. And there is no other choice. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Pakistan for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of France.
Thank you, Mr. President. I begin my statement today in this 10,000th session of the Security Council with an apology. An apology to the people of Palestine, in particular in Gaza, to those whose eyes are turned to this Council today. We Algerians, we hear you, Palestinian sisters, Palestinian brothers. Forgive us. Forgive us, in particular in Gaza, where fire consumes, where rubble suffocates. Forgive us because this Council could not save your children. More than 18,000 of them have been killed by Israel. Forgive us because this Council could not protect your women. More than 12,000 of them have been killed by Israel. Forgive us because this Council could not shield your elderly. More than 4,000 of them have been killed by Israel. Forgive us because this Council could not defend your doctors, your nurses. More than 1,400 have been killed by Israel. Forgive us because we couldn't defend your journalists. More than 250 have been killed by Israel. Forgive us because we couldn't protect your aid workers. More than 500 of them have been killed by Israel. Forgive us because famine now spreads in Gaza, and this Council could not stop it, could not even act to denounce it. because this Council could not halt your forced displacement, and because aid, humanitarian aid, is turned into a weapon. And this Council, this very Council, could not break the siege of Gaza. Forgive us, because the world speaks of rights, but deny them to you, Palestinians. Forgive us because our efforts, our sincere efforts, shattered against the wall of rejection. Despite these sincere efforts, this Security Council was not of any help for you. Why? Because Israel is shielded, because it is immune. Immune not by international law, but by the bias of this international system. Israel kills every day, and nothing happens. Israel starves a people, and nothing happens. Israel bombs hospitals, schools, shelters, and nothing happens. Israel attacks a mediator and steps on diplomacy, and nothing happened. And with every act, unpunished, humanity itself is diminished. Colleagues, history will not weigh our speeches. It will weigh our deeds. When Gaza burned, when children starved, when hospitals fell under the bomb, did we act? Yes. Yet know this. Today, 14 courageous members of this Security Council raise their voice. They have acted with conscience, echoing the calls of the international public opinion. Palestinian sisters, Palestinian brothers, be assured, we will not give up. This is not the last time this Council is acting, and the international community must shoulder its duty. President, again, this Council failed. Another scar of the conscience of humanity. Shame. Shame on helplessness. Shame in the face of genocide. Genocide unfolding before open eyes. And to those who still deny, read the report. Read the report of the Independent Commission of Inquiry. its words are clear, and I quote, "The Commission concludes that the State of Israel bears responsibility for the failure to prevent genocide, the commission of genocide, and the failure to punish genocide against the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip." This Council has already failed twice in preventing genocide. Today, it appears we are on the verge of witnessing a third failure. And at this moment, there can be no ambiguity. Each of us must choose either to act to stop the genocide or to be counted among those who were complicit. Mr. President, Palestine has never been surrendered to empires or invaders. Those who sought to subdue it are remembered only in shame. Palestine is for the Palestinian, and Algeria, as President Abdelmajid Tebboune has vowed, will never abandon them. Not until the establishment of Palestinian state with Al-Quds Sharif as its capital. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Algeria for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Somalia, representative of Guyana.
Mr. President, on December 9, 1947, at its 222nd meeting, the United Nations Security Council held its first meeting on Palestine. Today, so many years later, at this 10,000th meeting of the Council, 14 member states of the Council decided to definitively respond to the confirmation of famine in Gaza and to reiterate our demand for a ceasefire and for the release of all hostages held in Gaza. Guyana therefore deeply regrets the use of the veto today, which scuttled these efforts. An effort of the elected 10 members of this Council, deeply conscious of the horrific situation in Gaza and our responsibility for the maintenance of international peace and security, we employed a consultative manner in the development of this resolution, with the involvement of all member states of this Council at every stage. It is on this note I extend my deepest appreciation to Ambassador Christina Larsen and the delegation of Denmark for their tireless efforts in piloting us through the drafting process towards the tabling of the draft resolution today. Mr. President, dear colleagues, the question consuming many in the international community, including many of us around this table, is what will it take to achieve consensus for the Security Council to act as one and exercise its responsibility to protect the Palestinian people? In the nearly 2 years of Israel's active military operations in Gaza, the breadth of the atrocities unleashed on the Palestinian people defies every tenet of decency, morality, and humanity. More importantly, international law, the very fabric of the international system that we built from the ruins of World War II, continues to be violated every single day, in defiance of every warning, every legal ruling, every appeal to the perpetrator of these atrocities. And all of this, Mr. President, is done with total impunity. Mr. President, the result of this impunity is the ongoing commission of genocide. Yes, genocide, the words that many did not want to use and hope we'd never have to use it, is confirmed this week by the UN Independent International Commission of Inquiry on the APT and Israel. Impunity has also resulted in the weaponization of starvation to the point of creating a famine in Gaza, while Israel continues to impose restrictions on the delivery of humanitarian aid into Gaza. Displacement, destruction, disease, death, these are the squalid fruits that impunity is bearing in Gaza. And yesterday, another cycle of annexation continues to take root as the occupying power began its ground operations in Gaza City, following weeks of strikes on high-rise buildings in the city. At the least, my delegation had hoped that there will be political will on the part of each member of the Security Council to coalesce around the core concerns addressed by the draft resolution. One, securing a ceasefire as the basis for sustainable improvement in the humanitarian situation, including the reversal of famine, and two, securing the release of hostages. It is difficult, Mr. President, to raise any credible argument against Council action on these concerns, as they fall squarely within the purview of the Council's mandate for the maintenance of international peace and security. More than that, it is the decent, moral, and human thing to do. The international community has rightly looked to the Council to defend and protect the right of the Palestinian people to be free from Israel's tyranny. But again, owing to the continued exercise of the veto prerogative, this Council is constrained. Mr. President, Guyana wants this war on Palestine to end permanently, comprehensively, and justly. And we will continue to partner to this end with those who have a role in making this goal a reality. The Security Council is pivotal to this end, and Guyana urges that we keep sounding the alarm bells on Palestine and advocating for the Palestinian people until they are free. The Council has the tools to bring about decisive changes in the situation in Gaza and to prevent further escalations in the region, and we should utilize them. Sadly, once again, we could not do so today despite the political will of 14 of the 15 member states. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Guyana for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Sierra Leone.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sierra Leone thanks Denmark for coordinating the process that culminated in the 10 elected members of the Security Council tabling a draft resolution. Regrettably, it was not adopted owing to the non-concurring vote of a permanent member. The initiative of the E10 arose from the grave urgency to address the devastating humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip, compounded by the continued captivity of the hostages held by Hamas for over 700 days. Sierra Leone voted in favor of the draft resolution out of our conviction that as Council members, we bear a charter responsibility to rescue civilians from the scourge of war, marked by immense suffering, hunger, insecurity, and continuous loss of life. The draft resolution was clear. It demanded an immediate, unconditional, and permanent ceasefire respected by all parties, the immediate and dignified release of all hostages held in violation of international humanitarian law, full and unimpeded humanitarian access at scale so that food, water, medicine, and fuel reach those in desperate need. Had the resolution been adopted in this historic 10,000 meeting of the Council, it would have fulfilled the Council's most urgent duty to halt the unconscionable suffering of civilians, especially children, who have borne the brunt of this war. We recall with sorrow the August briefing by Ms. Inga Ashen, CEO of Save the Children International, whose testimony of famine and malnutrition, each on the frail bodies of children, must stir our collective conscience. In Gaza today, children face hunger and disease instead of classrooms and playgrounds. Sierra Leone is gravely concerned by the continuation of the conflict, and it deepens with despair. The immediate ceasefire that would have demanded that have been demanded could have supported the resumed two-state solution conference, co-chaired by France and Saudi Arabia. Only a just and lasting political solution can end this cycle of violence and deliver security for both Palestinians and Israelis. Mr. President, we regret that the non-adoption of this largely humanitarian resolution leaves unaddressed the urgent demand for Israel to lift all restrictions on humanitarian aid into Gaza, following confirmation of famine in Gaza governorate and its spread to other areas in recent weeks. The draft resolution also demanded an immediate ceasefire and the unconditional release of all hostages, imperatives particularly in light of the findings of the Human Rights Council Commission of Inquiry, which concluded that acts committed in Gaza by Israeli forces constitute crimes against humanity, war crimes, and underlying acts of genocide. Under the Genocide Convention, no state may turn away. The duty to prevent genocide is binding on all, and failure to act would make this Council complicit in one of the gravest crimes known to humanity. 14 members of the Council acted. This Council and the international community cannot avert their gaze when children are starved, schools destroyed, and civilians massacred. Again today, 14 of its members acted, and not for the first time. Constrained by the veto, we must continue to act to end the genocide in Gaza. Human dignity demands it. International law requires it. The International Court of Justice has clarified that under the Genocide Convention, states not only have a duty to punish genocide after it occurs, but an active duty to prevent it when there is a serious risk. The alarm was raised. This obligation requires due diligence once a state knows or should know that genocide is at risk. It must use all reasonably available means, diplomatic, political, economic or otherwise lawful, to stop it. The court in the Bosnia versus Serbia found that failure to act, despite influence over those who carried out the Srebrenica genocide, breached their obligation. This duty is owed erga omnes to the international community as a whole. The court has further underlined that complicity in genocide is prohibited. A state cannot lawfully provide aid, cover, or assistance to the perpetrators if it knows genocide is being or about to be committed. In its provisional measures in South Africa versus Israel, the ICJ reaffirmed these principles, ordering Israel to refrain from acts that could constitute genocide, to prevent and punish incitement, and to allow humanitarian relief into Gaza to avoid conditions that could destroy a protected group, the Palestinian people. These rulings remind us that there can be no neutrality or silence in the face of genocide. Mr. President, to close, let us be clear. Unlike Pontius Pilate, states cannot wash their hands of their responsibility. The blood of innocent children cries out for justice. The Council, although constrained by the veto, and the international community, must not remain indifferent. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Sierra Leone for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Slovenia.
Thank you, Mr. President. We regret
Representative of United Kingdom.
Thank you, President. The UK voted in favour of this resolution today to demand urgent action to address the appalling humanitarian situation in Gaza, to bring the hostages home and end the conflict which has raged for almost 2 years. Since Hamas atrocities of October 7, hostages have been held in unimaginable conditions in Gaza. This Council has been consistent in its demand for the release of the hostages in each of its 4 resolutions, and today's text underlined this demand again. The images of emaciated hostages held in brutal conditions speaks to the brutality of Hamas. They need to allow the ICRC to see the hostages and care for their needs. We reiterate our condemnation of Hamas and its terrorist ideology. Hamas must have no role in the future of Gaza. Last week, the UN General Assembly delivered a resounding message in support of this, with 142 countries voting to condemn Hamas attacks and to demand they disarm and end their rule in Gaza. President, we need a ceasefire more than ever. And yet Israel's reckless expansion of its military operation takes us further away from a deal which could bring the hostages home and end the suffering in Gaza. We are witnessing an entirely man-made famine in Gaza, and images of starving Palestinians killed while desperately seeking scraps of food for their families. And this week, Israel struck Gaza City Children's Hospital. Newborn babies in incubators and children on dialysis should not be under bombardment. We urge Israel's government to end the bloodshed, which has already cost the lives of 65,000 Palestinians, and to immediately lift its restrictions on the entry of aid and allow the UN and humanitarian agencies to save lives. President, the UK thanks the E10 for drafting and consulting on today's resolution. We regret the Council was unable to reach consensus on today's resolution, but we remain committed to the vision of this text. We will continue to do all we can to end this conflict, bring the hostages home, and work with our partners on a pathway to peace. to achieve a secure Israel alongside an independent Palestinian state. I thank you.
I thank the representative of the United Kingdom for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Russian Federation.